Hi and welcome to the UK Gravel Collective Cycling Podcast. This is episode 6 and it's sort of a studio interview, although both of us are sitting on our sofas in different parts of the country. There is a slight issue with the sound because my guest couldn't get her headphones to work properly, so there's a slight echo in the background, so apologies for that. But I don't think it detracts too much from the sound. And I've always said this isn't really a professional setup. It's proper shonky, as they say. But I think or hope that you'll enjoy it anyway. So here it is, episode 7, an interview with Hannah Dobson from Single Track World. Okay, so welcome to the UK Gravel Collective Cycling Podcast. And today's episode is a chat with Hannah Dobson, who's editor of Single Track magazine.
Managing editor is the official title, yeah, just to distinguish me from Chips, who is the editor at large.
So, is that just because he's permanently on holiday now?
Kinda. Yeah, I sort of do most stuff and then consult him from time to time.
Yeah, he seems to have got things sorted out in his life. So if anyone's listening who doesn't know who Chips is, Chips started Single Track magazine with Mark and another guy who I can't remember the name of, but I don't think he's involved
Patrick,
anymore.
I think. He's not involved anymore, no.
And Chips now lives in France somewhere, I think.
Yes, he has gîtes in France, yeah, if you want to go and stay with him and ride bikes and go up mountains. Yeah, that's what he does.
Yeah,
Sounds terrible, doesn't it?
yeah, it must be really awful. So yeah, you're editor. So, what I usually do at the start of I have been doing at the start of the podcast is just throw in a random question that's nothing to do with cycling.
Okay.
So do you read books at all?
Oh, it's terrible. I used to read loads, and now books are my measure of whether I'm really on holiday and switched off or not. I find it really hard to read after working with words all day long. So I listen to podcasts.
Right.
So if you're going to ask me what the last book I read was,
Well, no, what I was going to ask you is what was the last book that you couldn't finish?
oh God, all of them. It's terrible. I keep trying, like, I get a paragraph in and then I realise, no, I need to be on holiday. So
Yeah, well,
it's that I used to read so much, like 3, 4 books a week, and now I only read on holiday.
Yeah, I'm similar. If I find an author that I really like, then I'll just sort of binge the books, and it's quite good if you find someone that's had a few novels. But I think the last one I didn't finish was one that's recommended on the Single Track forum, actually, a science fiction book, and I just couldn't get into it.
All right. Now I have a house full of books. It's very sad. I'm sorry. It's all these books that I would like to read, but one day when I have a holiday, I'll get through them.
Right, so you're an editor of Single Track, but have you always been a journalist? Has that always been writing? Has that always been your thing?
Not
so
at all.
Give me a brief history of Hannah Dobson.
Oh, crikey. So I've always ridden bikes. I grew up out in the sticks in Scotland. No neighbours for a mile radius. If you wanted to do anything, you had to get on your bike. And my dad always rode to work miles away and that kind of thing. So, yeah, bike's always been there. But I'm a project manager and policy nerd by training and occupation before I came to Single Track. And I did like multi-million pounds infrastructure projects in the public sector.
Right.
So quite different.
Sorry, that does not sound interesting.
So it was interesting. It was interesting in that I did projects that I felt were doing some good, I guess. And so one of the projects I did was replacing these really horrible hostel accommodation where you didn't have your own bathroom. You just had a tiny room, and you didn't have your own kitchen or anything like that. So people with learning disabilities, mental health needs, lived in these hostels and didn't have any kind of autonomy and personal space. And
Yeah.
we replaced those with flats and houses and bungalows that were like what you'd want to live in, with all the accessible features that you'd need as well. So it felt like a good thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
So
when you
yeah,
say
so
it
it
like
can be.
that,
Yeah.
yeah. So how did you go from that to writing about bicycles, riding bicycles, and working in the corporate world to
Well,
writing about bikes?
I left the corporate world for a few years and looked after my kids when they were young. Um, and I was still riding bikes during that time. I volunteered in a bike recycling place, just to have some time to myself. And so I was doing a lot of bike related stuff. I was the lady with a trailer in the valley. Like, that made me stand out. Lots of people knew that I was dragging my kids around in a trailer. Um, and then it was kind of the unfortunate circumstance of Jen being ill, and
Right.
then at the same time, my best friend from uni also having cancer, that just sort of started a conversation about that situation, and with Beata, who was a friend of mine through riding bikes,
Yeah.
and then she was like, "Oh, single track needs someone to organise." I was like, "I'm organised. I could do that."
Yeah. Yeah.
So off I went.
So you didn't start off as editor then?
No, I was like managing the editorial workflow. And yeah, I was supposed to be doing the boring bits so that Jen could spend her days doing all the fun adventures and writing.
Yeah.
And then, kind of soon after I started, she was too ill to do any of that anymore. But there were still like women specific bikes that needed testing, or women specific clothes or whatever. And I was
Yeah.
like the person in the office that rode bikes. So I started writing about them. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think at this point, hopefully there'll be people listening who not. That's the wrong thing to say. Hopefully there'll be people listening who don't know what single track world is, but hopefully there'll be enough people listening who don't know what single track world is, which I've been a member of the forum for I don't know how many years. I don't really want to think about it. So you and I sort of know everything about it. But if for someone in the outside world who doesn't know what single track world is, what's it all about?
Oh, right. Okay. So it's an independent publication. It's not part of a big publishing house. So I think that's quite important, that Chips and Mark, that started it, still part of Single Track, and Mark's still there in the office or at his desk every day. And they have the singletrackworld.com website and Single Track World print magazine, which we still do on actual paper.
Yeah.
Um, and so that, I guess, sounds fairly standard. But then we also have, as part of the website, the Single Track Forum, which is a massive community of people that have they kind of come there for bike related stuff, and then they stick around and they chat about all things to do with life. It's kind of like being in the pub. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah, whatever you would talk about there gets chatted about. So there's plumbing recommendations and there's life disasters, as well as which bike and what tire for, whatever. But so that's what we do. But I think the independent thing is really important, because it's all we do. We don't have other publications that are doing, what food or
Yeah.
tourist guides or whatever.
Yeah.
We just do bikes. It's some people that like bikes, and they like what bikes do for their life and the world, and want to write about it and want to share that, rather than it being like a corporate thing with a
Yeah. Yeah.
yacht at the end of it.
Well, yeah, that would be nice, but yeah, I mean, it's one of the reasons I started UK Gravel Co. Really is, apart from Single Track, all the other websites and the magazines that are still left going, all their reviews are basically the same. They all run to the same formula. You get so many stars out of 5, or etc. etc.
Hmm.
Well, what I used to like about Single Track was at the end of a bike review, it would get compared to a pair of trousers, or these are a hard wearing pair of jeans, or rather than just a casual pair of jeans, and it all sort of related to the bikes, and it became a simpler way to understand it. So you could
Hmm.
pick that magazine up uh, and know exactly what the person writing it was talking about, rather than a lot of jargon, and the same review basically over and over again. And I
Yeah.
know that
No.
since you've taken over, that's carried on, and I, I'm grateful that you haven't changed that, because
No.
I think that's what
Well, yeah.
brings people back all the time.
Yeah, well, I do try to write reviews in a way that is interesting and entertaining, even if you've got no intention of ever buying that product. Um, like it's still storytelling, the way that you lived with that product, and the way you found it, and it needs to be informative for the potential buyer as well. But I don't think that
Yeah,
precludes it being entertaining and interesting. And I think a lot of people that ride bikes are just interested in what's out there. They want to be able to have a conversation with other people about products without necessarily having used them. And so you want to read reviews, and you don't just want 3 stars, 4 stars, whatever. You want to be able to have some kind of insight and relatable feeling
yeah,
about, oh yeah, well,
yeah,
this is like that, or for that person, or whatever. So
yeah.
yeah, that's what we try and do with the reviews.
Yeah, I do similar, because I always think that um, the people out there, they haven't got hundreds of pounds to spend on a handlebar. So if I review it, or you've reviewed it, you get an honest answer, and then they're not wasting their money,
Hmm.
£150 on a bar that just wouldn't be suitable for their type of riding. So I think
Yeah,
that's a good thing about Single Track. Um,
but yeah, we try
but
and
do you
review them
find
for the.
that? Go on.
So, and so we try and review them so that we look at who would this product suit. So some of the very bling stuff, like there is a market for it, but it's
Yeah,
not necessarily the same person that's going down to Decathlon. And as a reviewer, part of your job is to identify like who should buy this, who would get the benefit from buying this. Yeah, and if you just want to have a bike that is the equivalent of a Porsche, then the price
yeah.
doesn't matter, does it?
No, no. Well, at the end of the day, if you ride, as long as you're riding the bike, it doesn't really matter, does it? It's
Mm-hmm.
because well, you're still turning the pedals even on an e-bike, and that's the
Yep.
fun part, isn't it? Just getting out there.
Yeah.
Um, do you find that people treat you differently because you do reviews? I know that I find it. I get messages, and I don't get paid for this. I'm just doing it as a hobby. But a lot of people think, well, yeah, you've got the perfect job. You get all this free stuff, and you're getting paid to ride bikes all day. Do you get any sort of backlash from that, or any comments?
I don't think I get any backlash from it. I think people are surprised that I don't ride bikes all day. That's the sad thing. I've definitely got plenty of friends who ride bikes more. Um, yeah, but uh, no backlash. And I guess I do make a point of trying to stay in touch with how much things cost, and then relating that to the rest of real life. A lot of my reviews will say, I would never have the money to buy this. It's very nice, but I'll probably look for it in the sale.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've reviewed like really expensive carbon wheels, and I've put at the end, if I had the money, then I'd
Mm,
probably buy these, but I haven't, so I've got to give them back. And
yeah.
I think that's what surprises a lot of people. You get sent stuff to review, but most of the time it goes back to the people who sent it to you, doesn't it? Well, obviously not
A lot.
probably a
Yeah.
pair of bib shorts, because no one wants those back after you've been wearing them for 3 months.
That's the specialist market. Yeah. But no, I do get asked a lot by people that ride with, have you tried this? What's your view on this or whatever? And so I guess people must think that what I've got to say has some value. They trust my perspective on it, whatever. So yeah.
So with Wednesday being International Women's Day,
Oh God, yeah.
I don't know what your feelings on there being a special day. It all seems a bit Hallmark cards to me.
Mm.
When really we shouldn't need a day. It should be all year round where everyone's equal. But do you find any resistance to you being a female editor of what I think is fair to say is predominantly a male sport?
Resistance, no. Surprise, maybe. Yeah, I think.
I mean,
Um,
is there much discrimination as there is in other industries?
ooh, hmm. I would say that is it discrimination? I guess of a sort. They just don't realise. They don't necessarily realise the uh, maleness of the space, and so they don't intend to be discriminatory as such, but it doesn't necessarily, some of the practices don't help include more women or include more women in the industry. So, for example, I am one of very few women that get sent on unisex product launches.
Right.
Other female bike journos have generally only been sent on women specific product launches.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's been a media house decision, like women are testing the women's stuff, and that's it. And so bike companies, like brands planning launches, could actually change that by asking for women specifically to come along on their
Yeah.
unisex launches. And I have seen that men don't mind reading a review written by women, as long as it's well informed and it's been done properly. But women like gravitate towards those reviews that are written by women because it's a rarity still, sadly.
Yeah. And
So it's kind of more
even
relatable
though
for them.
you are doing it in an unbiased way, it is coming from a female perspective, isn't it? So
Yeah, yeah. So it just sort of says, oh, that bike could be for me. And so I think bike brands are kind of missing a trick when they don't have women reviewing their unisex stuff. And it is shifting. But I was at Ice Bike today and there weren't many women there. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, it's still very male dominated, and that sort of everything I've ever worked in has been quite male dominated.
Yeah.
Construction is as well. So it's sort of something that I'm used to, but it would be nice if it wasn't something that you didn't have to not mind, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I was talking to a riding friend of mine. Well, actually, we recorded a podcast, and it sort of ties into because Single Track has a podcast as well. And I was listening to the one with you, Mark, and Benji, I think it was, and talking about advertising. And Mark was saying how good the snowboard advertising is. And we were talking on Sunday that a lot of the mountain bike advertising probably puts more people off than it attracts, because if you look at the YouTube videos, it's people in very exotic locations doing big gap jumps or drops on a really expensive bike. And I think it sort of alienates people to get into the sport because they look at that and they think, well, I need a really good bike. I can't afford that. If I go ride with all these other people, they're going to be really good. I'm not going to be able to keep up. So do you think that advertising needs to change to encourage more people, not just women, but everyone, into cycling?
I think it needs to be more creative. I think the mountain bike industry has tended to advertise at mountain bikers. People are already converted, and so they're trying to sell existing mountain bikers the next upgrade,
Yeah.
and which is fine. There's a place for that, but some broader thinking about how you reach new markets, and new riders, different sorts of riders. I think, it would be good for the industry. If you look, there's collective bikes, for example, based in London, and they do the wheelie bikes.
Okay.
So they're like BMX cruisers and mountain bikes, hardtail mountain bikes, but specifically designed for and marketed at those teenagers that
Just
want to
ride
do
on the back
wheelies,
wheel. Yeah.
ride on the back wheel the whole time, and it's very like urban kind of riding, but they've set their price point at that market, and they've marketed it at that market, and it's as desirable as the Santa Cruz to the kids that are
Yeah.
riding wheelie bikes, and have incredible bike skills. So there are opportunities there. The market is there, and then those riders, they then have just as many customized bling kind of paint jobs and all the rest of it that the riders in mountain biking or gravel or whatever do. But yeah, the start of what they did was looking at, like, here's the average teenager in the street kind of thing. What do they want? And speaking to them.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
a lot of the mountain bike marketing just doesn't do.
Yeah. And I think probably a lot of the mountain bike marketing is run by men. So again, they're not getting the non-male perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's so many kind of contextual subtleties in things that I sometimes see adverts and I think, oh, why did nobody just say, maybe it would come across better if it was a woman against that script or whatever.
Yeah.
That's kind of, it's alienating to women the way it comes across, but it wouldn't be alienating to men if you swapped the presenter or whatever, or the person in the picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
Um. Yeah. So I'm sure on most of the social medias for the UK Gravel Collective, it's like 87.5% male.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always trying to find a way to encourage non-males into, because it'll benefit me, and obviously it'll
Mm-hmm.
benefit everyone else. But I need to come back to print, really,
Okay.
because there are less and less magazines being printed, and everything seems to be online now. I mean, I like reading single track because it's that, again, that's that visceral experience of turning the pages and
Mm-hmm.
having something tactile. But do you think that single track's going to be able to survive as a print and online
I
media?
think so. I hope so. I mean, it kind of depends on the bike industry continuing to advertise, not necessarily in print, but as a whole, across the piece. Usually, if somebody buys a marketing package these days, it's not just a print ad; it's a whole package of different bits and pieces. But I think that there is a market to buy print. People still want that downtime. They want to be able to look at nice pictures. Want to be able to see how long the article is. Being able to read it in the bath or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, there is a place for print, and there's no doubt you have to be very efficient in how you do it. I don't think there's a place in the long term for very review based print, because people are just going to go for that online. But for
Yeah. Yeah.
stories that are fairly timeless,
Yeah.
I think,
Because I think
yeah, there is.
reviews by the time they come out in print, something's probably superseded them.
Yeah, and so the reviews that go in print in single track, we try and make them more of a state of the technology as we are at this moment in time kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
um, if you're you're not necessarily in the market for buying that thing, but it would be interesting to understand what suspension forks are like at the moment. And indeed, you can look back on reviews from the early issues of the magazine, and they're still interesting because we're going, hey, here's this newfangled thing, and where's it going to go? And oh, this doesn't work very well, or whatever. So
Yeah.
you get that sort of snapshot in time. Um, so yeah, I think there's the space for telling stories about product and talking about product, but out and out 3-star, 5-star reviews in print, I think has a limited future. But I think curated content of stories,
Yeah.
people want that,
Yeah.
and I think a print magazine, is a really good way to do that because it gives you that focus that like we've packaged this together and we think that all of these stories are worth you taking time out, sitting down and reading them. There's no throwaway content in print.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah, I think
this
there's like a density of curated content there that's
my
valuable.
my one claim to fame is that I appeared in, I think it was issue 82 or 83, when Benji came down to where I live and we went for a ride. It was the local ride, which we couldn't
Right.
actually publish the route because it was all sort of illegal. There were hardly any bridleways on it, but I got a photo in it in the magazine, so it's still on my Facebook page as the highlighted picture. So if anyone's looking for a back copy, I'm sure it's 82 or 83.
Yeah.
And I think you can download that from the Single Track website if you remember.
You certainly can. I mean, if you uh, join as a member, even if you only join digitally, you can download all the PDFs of all the past magazines that exist. So it's like what, 25 quid to join for the year, and then you get a lifetime of reading.
Yeah, and you can print
It's a
off that
bargain.
PDF and a picture of me. Brilliant.
Yeah,
I
if
mean,
you want to. And
that's
we even have some back issues as well. And if you remember, you get a discount on the back issues. So you can like if you're stuck in hospital with your foot up for a while, or you're going on a long holiday, you can pre-order some print material and take it with you. Detox.
excellent.
Yeah.
Um, so you test a lot of bikes for Single Track. Single Track isn't just mountain bikes. You do gravel bikes as well. You do e-bikes. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but is what would you say was your favourite bike? If you couldn't ride any other bike again after today, what bike would you keep in your garage?
You told me this question was coming, and it's too hard.
Well,
I can't choose.
would it be a mountain
So,
bike? Would it be a gravel bike? Would it be a road bike?
uh,
Would it be a
so
cargo bike?
yeah. See, I can't. I find it hard to imagine life without a full suspension bike to hurtle down some things at,
Yeah,
occasion. So the idea of never scaring myself at, a series of drops or whatever, like I find that I don't think I could give that up. Really, that would be a hard thing to give up. But I really hate driving, and I really love my cargo bike. And I think everyone in the world needs a cargo bike. So I'm kind of I'm really torn. So my compromise deal here on this particular negotiation,
yeah.
I think I might go for a Ken Brave out of the ones that I've tested, which, to anyone not familiar with it,
I'm
it's
not.
a
No.
monster tired drop bar e-bike. So
With a big
think,
basket on the front.
well, I put a rack on it, yeah, but
Yeah,
uh, so it's like imagine like a Kona Sutra LTD.
yeah.
It's that kind of idea, but with a battery and a motor, and so I live up quite a big hill, and the battery and the motor makes a big difference to being able to nip to the shops and bring your shopping back with you and that kind of thing. So that's I really struggle to give that up. But the Brave was fun to ride almost everywhere, and I could take it down a lot of stuff and up a lot of stuff, but I would have to probably give up my drops and bike park type stuff on it.
Do you live around the Calder Valley area? Yeah, so it's not exactly flat around there, is it? And there are lots of steps and rocks, and so you definitely need a capable bike, even just to go to the shops.
Yeah, it's like 20% hills are not unusual around here. So that on the way back from Lidl's. So that's my compromise. If I really only can have one ever again, I think I'm going to go for that. Like, it does almost everything, but not quite the funnest of fun, scary stuff. I mean, I suppose I could scare myself on it by riding it inappropriately.
Well, isn't that the whole point of riding off road? When you scare yourself, just that little bit. I mean, that's why I found fun for gravel bikes, because the modern mountain bike just smooths everything out so much that it becomes a bit boring, because I don't live in an area that's got loads of technical trails. But going on the gravel bike, doing a descent at 10 mile an hour is like doing 25 mile an hour, on a downhill bike, because you're not quite sure that you can still be on the bike when you get to the end of some of the stuff. But if I did it on a 130 mil full suspension bike, I wouldn't even notice it was there. So that's part of the fun for me.
Yeah,
it's
the
adrenaline rush, but in a safe way. You're sort of cocooned.
Yeah, I do like the mild peril of a gravel bike, and also I ride clipped in on a gravel bike, which I don't do on a mountain bike. So for added peril, and comedy,
exactly the same for me. Yeah, I've been out on my mountain bike today, and I just done the routes that I do on the gravel bike, and it's so slow. It's like, the tarmac bits are like, I can see why I like the gravel bike.
Yeah, no, I do ride, plenty of gravel bikes, but there is just that thing about flight that you can't really do on a gravel bike, not intentionally or ending well anyway.
Yeah.
I'm not quite ready to give that up yet. So
I don't tend to leave the ground.
Oh, I still have aspirations of radness. So.
Yeah. That's what it's all about. Yeah, I'm quite good at taking off, but I tend to forget how to land again. And in mid-air, I suddenly realise, and that's when I start to panic. So yeah, that's an interesting bike then. Drop bar mountain bike, really, with a battery. So I'm going to ask you the same question about kit or clothing or accessories. Say in the last 12 months, what's your favourite piece? I know that whenever I look at Single Track, because you do a thing called Fresh Goods Friday.
Yeah.
So every Friday you publish things that have been sent to Single Track that are going to come up in tests in the future, and it's just a sort of an overview. But a lot of the time you seem to end up in dungarees. And
wearing dungarees now. Yeah, I really like dungarees.
Well, I noticed today, because you've published a little snippet about Ice Bike, that Madison have come up with some mountain bike dungarees.
They have.
So I'm thinking you're going to be in those. Yeah, I think we had a bit of a technical issue there, and we've swapped meetings now. So we were talking about you and dungarees, and the fact that Madison is the company that imports Shimano, if anyone doesn't know, and they have their own brand of clothing and lots of other things, but they've just come out with some what looked like from the pictures mountain bike specific dungarees, which is an interesting concept. Will you be trying those?
I definitely will be trying those. Yes, they're not going to be available until autumn this year to buy, but I'm hoping I will get sent a sample pair to try out. Because I don't think there's anybody else in the mountain bike world that has worn as many different mountain bike dungarees as me. So yes, I do like dungarees. I'm reasonably tall, and I find trying to fit trousers around your waist and long in the leg are just a nuisance. So dungarees are the perfect solution.
Do they come with the issue that bib shorts have for ladies when you have to take a visit behind a bush? Are they?
Well, I have been known to drop my dungaree straps down the toilet for sure. Like, you just have to keep them under control. But yeah, it's not as bad as for bib stuff because generally your dungarees are over the top. You'd have to take all your other clothes off as well.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, it sounds like something that's perfect for a cargo bike.
Oh,
Some
it's perfect for mountain biking
delivery
actually.
dungarees. Oh, really?
Delivery
Okay.
dungarees, yeah. But so no, I was really surprised when I tested the POC dungarees, which are waterproof. What I realized is that you can wear them with just a t-shirt or a long sleeve shirt, and you can ride up the hill and you kind of vent enough heat out of the top. But
Yeah,
then when you go turn around to ride down the hill, the bib on the front acts as like a windbreak,
hmm,
like wearing a gilet would, I guess.
yeah, yeah,
And you don't get spray all up your back and your arse because that's got a waterproof section on it as well. So rather than having like endless layers that you've got to take off and put on like you would normally have, you just you're just there. And so often when we go for a ride in the UK, there's loads of splashy stuff all over the ground, although it's not actually falling out of the sky.
yeah,
And so the
yeah.
dungarees
Usually,
kind of
usually
deal
in
with that.
midsummer.
Yeah. So yeah, actually, dungarees I think are quite a practical UK riding solution. And then when it's really wet, you've got your waterproof coat over the top, and there's no like gap for stuff to get in. So yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
I'm
Well,
all for the mountain bike dungaree. They just need to be durable enough
yeah,
uh, to last all the grit and grime.
yeah.
So
Well,
so
you
you
wouldn't.
asked for
You.
my
Yeah,
favorite thing.
yeah.
Uh, it's not actually from the last year. It's from a
Well,
number of years ago, but they're
yeah.
still going.
The best kit that you've ever tested.
Yeah, I think I might have to give that to the Seven Mesh Revo waterproof shorts,
Hmm.
which are on the face of it, very expensive, but they have lasted longer than any other waterproof bottoms that I've had. So, and if you can pick them up in a sale, then they're definitely worth it.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
So
but
they
I just
survive.
feel like waterproof shorts are one of those things that are so useful in the UK and make such a difference to your comfort of riding, even
Yeah,
on a gravel bike as well. But that whole like sitting on the saddle covered in mud grinding into something that needs to be waterproof is a certainly a product design challenge.
and do they survive like the grittiness as well?
They have done pretty well. I mean, they're not as waterproof as they were when I first got them out of the bag, but they're still pretty good, and they haven't actually got holes in or like gone thin or anything
Yeah,
like that. So
yeah,
no, they
yeah.
have
So
survived the best.
my issue with all the best waterproof shorts tend to be really rustly, and it really annoys me for some reason.
Mm,
And
these
but
have
all the
not
soft
been
gel
too
ones
rustly.
tend to wet out after a while, and although they sound better, they end up you're just as wet at the end of the ride. But the seven mesh
Yeah.
stuff, yeah, I've got a seven mesh gilet. Um,
Hmm.
that is really good. Yeah. So how old are those
Yeah.
shorts then?
When did I first get them? I would say at least 4 years ago,
That's
I
pretty good.
think. Maybe even longer. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now they've been around long enough as well that you can pick them up in discount offers and that kind of thing as well. So, yep, they're the best I have found so far. Maybe someone else will bring some out to challenge them. And that's the thing
Um.
that I like. It feels like it makes a difference to the experience of the ride as well. Like it's just so much more pleasant not having a cold, wet arse the moment you hit them all.
Yeah, and I mean, hopefully, well, actually, I have got a listener in Australia because he messaged me and said that he really liked the accents.
Oh,
I think he's an expat. So
right.
my slightly Brummy accent, and I mean, yours not really a northern accent, is it?
What is mine now? Well, I'm actually Scottish, but I
Okay,
don't sound like it. I'm English parents.
right.
Yeah, it's just a bit
Um,
mixed up.
yeah, because like being in the north, your weather is a lot wetter than we get in the Midlands. So yeah, waterproof shorts
Yeah,
are,
and
are more beneficial for you than for
the
us.
Pennines especially, it's just like the wettest corner of the wet zone, isn't it?
Yeah, and I suppose living in a valley as well, it's just the clouds are going to break over you all the time, aren't
hmm Yeah, yeah, I can see them coming from my house.
they? So if your spot in sort of overlooking the bike industry and seeing from the inside and the outside, is there anything you'd like to change about the bike industry? I know we've touched on inclusivity and that sort of thing, but is there anything else?
It's probably quite a long list, but no, I do like it. Uh, it is in general, it's a friendly place to be. Um, I can see that people might find it intimidating and difficult to get in, and it. So I would like it to be more professional, more
Hmm.
organized, but without becoming corporate. So it's wonderful, the characters and the people and the stories and the passion, and the generally well, there are a lot of companies where the people designing the product or marketing the product, whatever, they really believe in it. And they also ride bikes and they're not looking at the profit margin all the time.
Yeah.
And it would be a tragedy to lose that. Um, but I think that there are lost opportunities by staying a bit amateur in some respects. So, although that's really like keeps the passion going and stops that corporate element, also, if you employ so and so to be your marketing manager because they ride bikes, or you employ somebody to be your accountant because they ride bikes, doesn't necessarily mean that you've got the person that would be really good at that job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so if you recruited in a more like normal advertiser job, people apply for it kind of a way, I think that would help with the diversity of people that you have, and you would have more ideas and things.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
also think that there's a lack of um, kind of structures and interactions between companies, and that's the bike industry doesn't really seem to speak up for itself as an industry, which seems weird to me. Like if you think about the car industry, it has this massive lobbying thing that goes
Yeah.
on, whereas the bike industry as a whole hasn't really spoken up on things like um, access, trail access, or even that much on bike lanes. So there's people for bikes. That's a very American thing, and that's done a lot of work on bike lanes, bike
Yeah.
infrastructure. But a lot of the projects that you see are one brand doing their local project, their local support for trail work or whatever, rather than actually going in at government level and going, hey, this would be really good for everybody if you were to let us ride on footpaths or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and
Do you
yeah, so I think that some of that comes out of like a lack of structure and plan and
do you think
yeah,
that's because
organizational experience.
most of the biggest bike companies are in the US, Trek and you specialised, um, and they sort of don't have those issues that we have in the
No,
UK and Europe.
they do have some of those. They do have access issues still, and certainly over e-bikes. I know that Specialized has done some targeted work on trying to uh, increase access rights for e-bikes.
Yeah,
Um, but I don't think I still don't think they do the same harnessing of lobbying power that they could do for such a big industry, with lots of people employed in it and lots of potential influence and things. It seems like it's still very like personal interactions rather than a collective. Yeah, so I'd like to see them for their own good, kind of collectivize a bit more.
yeah, because it
Mm.
seems to be like a cottage industry in the
Yeah,
UK. Lots of different people making little tiny bits that end up on one bike, but they don't actually ever speak to each other. I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting.
yeah. I'm not sure. They must speak to each other somewhere, but
Well, no,
maybe it's all in
otherwise,
Taiwan. I'm not sure.
otherwise there'd only be like one or two standards.
Uh, but yeah, it's difficult to balance that. I do like the way that it's driven by passion and enthusiasm and real people behind so many brands. Um, but yeah, at the same time, like it takes a certain amount of business analyst skill or whatever to
Yeah,
kind of do some of that big picture stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, I'd like to see a bit more of it. It's kind of boring but important.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think so because otherwise, I think if it carries on the way it is, um, it's just not going to progress, is it? It's
Well, I think we'll get overtaken by other industries that make things with wheels.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I think we'll see the motor industry making inroads. Yeah, and we'll lose the fun side of bikes.
yeah, yeah. Right. Well, um, is there anything else you
Well,
want to say?
we've got to talk about something else. That was a right miserable way to end. I
Well, I
don't
was going to
know.
say, is there anything you want to say to any of the listeners for the UK Gravel Cycling Podcast? I should have chosen a shorter name for the. I'll tell you what I need to do, and that's to apologise for not speaking to you when we were both at the Bespoke Bicycle Show, because I was a bit starstruck because I saw you. I think you were taking photographs or recording something for Single Track, and I thought, oh,
Right.
I better not go and introduce myself and interrupt her because she's working. I was just there for fun. So sorry about that.
Oh no,
I
I'm
know
always
when
up
I
for a
emailed
chat.
you about the podcast, we did mention it, but
No, no. So Bespoke was oh, it was great. It was super intense. I was not well. I'd been really ill the week before. I wasn't sure I was going to make it down, but I was like, I'm judging. I've got to get to this thing, and I love all the handmade bikes and everything. So I did have a good time there. But yeah, I'm always up for a chat, definitely. And
okay.
and there's always that disconnect between like I sort of lurk in the forum and I see all these usernames, and I love it when I manage to put a face to the name. I'll probably forget because I'm terrible at names and faces and stuff, but it's always
Surely you can't forget me.
I won't now. I'll try not to. Yeah, one thing you asked me you said as a possible question, and we touched on it in passing, and I didn't answer
Yep.
it. How to get people out on bikes
Mhm.
that aren't already riding,
Yep.
and I think it should be fun. And so you just need to pitch it right. Think about what's fun for that person, what's going to be fun for the new rider. Um, if they're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Something is wrong somewhere, whether it's the wrong weather or the wrong kit, or it could be the
Yep.
wrong bike. But I would say it's not necessarily the wrong bike; it's the wrong terrain for the bike that they happen to be on.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I sort of leark in the forum and I see all these names, and I love it when I learn in the forum and I see all these names, and I love it when I learn in the forum and I see all these names, and I love it when I learn in the forum and I see all these names, and I love it when I learn in the forum and I see all these names, and I love it when I learn in the forum and I see all these names, and I love it when I learn in the forum and I see all these names, and I love it when I learn in the forum and I see all these names, and I love it when I learn in the forum and I see all these names, and I love it when I learn in the forum and I see all these names, and I love it when I learn in the forum and I see all these names, and I love it when I learn in the forum and I see all these names, and I love it when I learn in the forum and I see all these names, and I love it when I learn in the forum and I see all these names, and I love it when I learn in the forum and I see all these names, and I love it it should be fun, and tailor it to them. And I reckon that if people have fun, then they'll always come back for more.
Yeah, 100%. Well, that I do YouTube as well, and the last YouTube video, we just went for a ride with an assortment of frying pans and batter mix, and tossed some pancakes in the middle of nowhere. And as a sign off for that, I said it's not about Strava, it's not about average speeds. All it is about having fun. And like you say, if you're having fun, you want to do it again, and you want to do it again after that. So, yeah, 100% agree with you there.
Yeah, even if it's just as what to us might seem like a tiny poodle, to somebody getting out for the first time seems like a massive achievement. But as long as they have fun, they'll go further next time.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming on the UK Gravel Collective Cycling Podcast. I hope it's been engaging for you. It's been interesting speaking to someone from, I'm going to say, a similar thing that I'm doing, but
right,
yours is a much greater scale. I'm just dabbling as an amateur. But yeah, thanks for coming on.
You're very welcome, and good luck with it all. Yeah.
I was going to say that to listen to the Single Track podcast, do you do those like once a week, or is it like just a random thing?
We do try to do them once. We've been a bit sporadic in the last few weeks, but yeah, we try and do it once.
Because you've currently got a non-cycling injury, haven't you?
Yeah, I
know. Do you want to tell everyone about that?
So that's not the reason for us being sporadic. The reason for us being sporadic is that we have to all sit down and record it, and then Mark has to edit it. So that's a demand on time. But no, I was off for a week, and I managed to smash into the ground trying to learn to snowboard. And yeah, it appears that I have quite possibly fractured something in my pelvis.
Ow.
And won't actually be able to do anything for another 3 to 5 weeks. So in week 3 today. Yeah, it sucks.
So are you on some industrial strength painkillers?
No, because I need to be able to feel when it, like what I'm doing. I need to not hurt it more.
Yeah.
So I'm just not doing very much. It's really, really boring. It's really difficult. I can't ride a bike. I can't even just go for a walk. I walked around Ice Bike today, and that was more than enough. By the end of the day, anything I dropped on the floor was just dead to me. I just couldn't pick it up.
So the lesson is, ride a bike, don't go snowboarding. Stick to 2 wheels.
I really want to learn, though. I have to try again. Yeah. I mean, I could just as easily have done this on a bike, couldn't I? Oh, well.
Yeah, that's true.
At least it's not May. Like, the weather's pretty crap just now. I'd be really upset if I'd done this in May.
Yeah, well, time of recording, it's beginning of March, and we're currently under threat of snow, I think. Even down here in the Midlands, it's forecast, which annoyingly coincides with 2 days annual leave that I've got. But anyway, never mind.
Of course it does. So it's all your fault.
Yeah. Right, well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Make sure you check out singletrackworld.com, the forum, the reviews, and also the podcast.
Yes.
And
all of that's free.
And I hope you'll join us on the next edition.
Cool. Thank you. Bye.